Materialism can never provide a satisfactory explanation of the world. Materialists seek an explanation of thoughts by regarding them as purely material processes.
The brain sets to work until it reaches its answer.
Hello?
It's the brain.
Can I have your answer, please? Okay.
Materialists ascribe the power of thinking to matter instead of to themselves. How does matter manage to think about its own nature? Why is it not simply satisfied with itself and content just to exist? The materialists have turned their attention away from the definite subject, their own I.
Dr. Michael Persinger claims that by stimulating the temporal lobes, he can artificially induce religious experience in almost anyone. Dr. Persinger has developed a device which produces an electromagnetic field across the temporal lobes. He says he can induce a moment that feels just like a genuine religious revelation with a machine unlike any other. Don had experienced one of the most common and bizarre effects in the chamber, a feeling that someone else was in there with him. Dr. Persinger called this feeling the sensed presence.
The fundamental experience is the sense presence, and our data indicate that the sensed presence, the feeling of another entity, of something beyond yourself, perhaps bigger than yourself, bigger in space and bigger in time, can be stimulated by simply activating the right hemisphere, particularly the temporal lobe.
The spiritist denies matter any independent existence and regards it only as a product of spirit. Our true nature is exclusively spiritual.
Researcher Dr. Andrew Newberg set up a brain imaging system that could for the very first time track exactly what happened inside Michael's brain as he meditated. The scans measured blood flow, with red showing the areas with highest flow and yellow the areas with lowest. The results revealed that, as in other experiments, the temporal lobes were certainly involved, but they showed something else. As Michael's meditation reached its peak, an area of the brain called the parietal lobes had less and less blood flowing into them. They seemed almost to be shutting down. This was significant new information. The parietal lobes help give us our sense of time and place.
This part of the brain typically takes all of our sensory information and uses that sensory information to create a sense of ourself. When people meditate, they frequently describe a loss of that sense of self, and that's exactly what we did see in the meditation subjects, was that they actually decreased the activity in this parietal or this orientation part of the brain. This strange sensation of a loss of self is central to religious feelings in all the world's faiths. Buddhists seek a feeling of oneness with the universe. Hindus strive for the soul and God to become one. And the Catholics search for the Uno Mystica.
For the spiritist, no spiritual approach to the world of the senses seems possible. Within all that it achieves spiritually by its own effort, no trace of the sense-perceptible world is to be found.
Conscious, sentient beings are aware of the stream and the current moving through the spinning vortexes. Alignment with center creates balance to allow the acceleration of the current. Consciousness aligns through choices, decisions, and selections of thought that are sensed through the vibrations of the feelings to attune to the exact center of the original choice.
It is as if the I has to admit that the world is a closed book to it unless it establishes a non-spiritual relationship to the world. To act, we have to translate our intentions into realities with the help of material things. We are, therefore, referred back to the outer world. The most extreme spiritist, or the absolute idealist, attempts to drive the whole world structure from the ego. He has no need for the real world and its facts. The external world exists only as a projection of the ego's imagination.
Rajasthan. Forgotten people. Desperate souls. Villagers sacrifice to lifeless idols and place their faith in powerless superstitions. Days pass. Some die. Others wait. Even though they're starving for peace, most haven't heard the name of Jesus. Scattered across the state are villages filled with people trapped in darkness. But this one's different. Jaman started a church here. When Jaman returned from Bible college to bring the gospel to his own people, his efforts were met with violent opposition. Villagers shouted vulgar insults and accusations. Fearing for their lives, one man jumped in a truck, and Jaman had no choice but to dress up in a lady's sari. Rakesh and the mob destroyed the outside of the house, then searched inside to find Jaman. But all they found were women.
The absolute idealist accomplishes a magnificent thought picture of the world, one without any actual experience. As little as it is possible for the materialist to argue away the spirit, just as little is it possible for the spiritist to argue away the outer world of matter. When we direct our consideration upon the I, we initially perceive the work of this I in the conceptual elaboration of the world of ideas. When looking at our own essential nature, we may be tempted to acknowledge nothing of spirit except this world of ideas.
Well, I always say that ideas are like fishing. So, and we all know when we go fishing, we have to have some patience. We have to have a hook and some bait. And then if we want to catch the little fish, we don't have to go so deep. But if you want to catch the big fish, you've got to go deeper. And I think a desire is the bait. If you desire something, it's like focusing. And as Maharishi says, where the attention is, that becomes lively. So when you focus on something, it's like putting bait on this hook. And if your consciousness, your awareness is expanded more and more and more, you're able to go deeper. And all things, anything that is a thing, everything comes from this field of unity. So those things are coming, and they're coming up from a deep level. And they're big down there. They're big and abstract. The whole thing. If you catch them up here, they're putrefied. They're funny. But if you get them down there, they're big and more pure and more power. So I'm looking for a certain kind of fish to translate into cinema, and I find that they're catchable, and they're very beautiful to me.
Instead of going on to penetrate through the world of ideas to the spiritual world, idealists identify the spiritual world with the world of ideas itself. As a result, idealists are compelled to remain fixed with their world outlook in the circle of activity of the ego as if spellbound.